So here's one way to get this done. So we're looking at the UX component first, and on the submit button, we've got some code in here to actually submit the dialog. UX component, that's fine. And then we have a set timeout function in here to give the submit time to get down to the server, save everything, and then come back. So we're just, you can play with this value and see how much you need. You don't need these statements in here. So the first thing we do is go and get the parent, which is the grid, and then we get the value of the new invoice ID, which should be there by now. And then we go and set a grid object namespace variable called underbar new invoice ID to the value of the invoice ID. This is just to pass it back up easily. And then we get a pointer to our UX button, and we close this window. So that's all that happens. So all we've done is we've saved the invoice, we've got the new number, we've set a variable back up in the grid, and closed down this UX. So that's all we do there. And let's see, I'm going to close this. And let's get into our invoice. So here's our grid rather, and oh, it's not our grid. This is our grid. Okay, so here we are in our grid, and it's just our regular grid. Now this is the same grid that I used for ordering your invoice state stuff. So we're using the same thing here. So what are we doing here? We've got a button. So go and look in the properties for this button to add a new record. So we're just using open or add a new record. So we've got enter new record in here. I'm giving it a specific window name. That doesn't make any difference. I'm not doing anything else here except you said you're running a grid refresh in the on hide event. So that's fine. We're doing that. So good. So that's all set. And we'll close that down. So we'll pop into the client-side events. You're running a refresh, so this is what we're doing in the refresh. Just move that over a bit. Okay, so in the refresh, we go and we grab the namespace variable that we set up in the UX. So we've got our new invoice number now. Now we're going to go and do an AJAX callback to get to this function, XBasic function called getRecIDPosition, and we're passing in the new invoice ID into this variable. So we've got that. So now this is going to run when this grid gets refreshed. This is going to run, and we'll go to our JavaScript stuff now. See, now overall the problem here is that you're adding a new record to the table, and based on the date that I don't know if you're adding a date into the invoice ID. It doesn't really matter that much, but because your grid is sorted by invoice ID, we have no idea where that ID is going to wind up. We just don't know. There's no way to tell. So what we're doing here is we're getting the value that we're passing in is in e.underbar var invoice ID in INV ID. So we've got that now. So whatever that number is going to be. And then we go ahead and we do a select invoice ID as in INV ID from invoices ordered by invoice date. So your grid's ordered by invoice date. So our select statement is going to be ordered by invoice date as well. And then we're just going to loop through. So we've got the new invoice number, and we're going to loop through these values, our records, until we find the invoice ID is equal to the new invoice ID. So our select statement and record set invoice ID is equal to our new invoice ID. When that happens, we're going to set a value. New record ID is equal to rec ID position plus 1. If it's not true, then we just come down here and we set our record ID position equals record ID position plus 1. So we're just keeping a value of where in the record set we're going to find it. And then we go to next record. So when we do find it, that's going to be our position plus 1. And we come down here, we say if new record position is greater than 0, because we set it at 0 up here, then we've got our new record position. So now we're going to run a JavaScript function to go and position our grid there. Otherwise, we're going to send out an alert saying our record was not found. So to see this running, let's go and have a look here. So our next, that's the stuff that was run to, just going to move this over to find the latest date. So I'm just going to position this at the top, or, yeah, fine, it doesn't really matter where we are. So we're going to add a new record. I think our new record, well, let's go and find out. What our last record? 73, 76, so our next record should be 77, and it's ordered by date, so it doesn't, yeah, it's going to be ordered by date. So let's go previous. So we'll add in a date of like the 5th, I think. So that should position it right around in here. Okay, so let's go first. We'll add a new record. Order ID, whatever. April 5th. Submit it. Come back. Refresh. Come down. That's exactly where we thought it should be. So that's cool. So we page down into our second page because that's where we're going to figure out where we are. So it's using the same code, XBasic code or JavaScript code, to figure out where in the UX, and rather where in the grid we need to be, which page, which record number. It's the same code as the last time when you were running the date stuff. We just have to find out where in the list of records what position our new one's in. Since we can get that from the UX, what our invoice ID, what our new invoice ID, it's just a matter of running through the records and setting a position. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, but that certainly works, and it seems to be pretty fast. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.